Hey guys, welcome to The Strong Young Man. Not many people realise that the different forms of media that we are exposed to on a daily basis are a source of a lot of our unhappiness. Social media does not convey an accurate representation of what is actually going on in people's lives. Social media appeals to us because the drive for social approval is important. We are social beings who can't completely ignore what people think of us. This conditioning is embedded in our biology. In Paleolithic times, our survival depended on social approval. The consequences of social rejection may not be the same, but human biology is something that will take several million years to de-evolve. Social media is a convenient mechanism we can use to get social approval on demand. This social approval comes at a cost though. While we post our most attractive moment of the day, targeted at obtaining maximal social approval, others are also doing the same to achieve theirs. When we see others post on social media, we are looking to compare our day-to-day experiences to the highlights of others. Social comparison triggers threatened feelings more than we realise. The mammalian brain has always compared itself to others, especially to determine social position or place in the dominance hierarchy. Social media portrays an idealised representation of someone's life. This means that your comparison will be inaccurate. If someone's post demonstrates an idealistic view of their achievements, then when you compare yourself to this perception, you will view yourself as inferior because you're comparing your everyday experiences to someone else's highlight reel. This can cause you a great deal of unhappiness. Social media has been identified as a major contributor to the increase in anxiety and depression in the 21st century. People who use social media for advertising or to run their business often confess that it's too distracting and they need a break from it. We just can't seem to put our phones down. We are addicted. The rewarding effects that we experience from social media, such as likes, comments, and notifications, keep us glued to the application. The positive feelings come from the reward centre in our brain. Our brain releases dopamine in order to reward behaviour that will result in prolonged survival or proliferation of our genes. The anticipation of the next dopamine hit is what keeps us hooked on social media. The uncertainty of when this reward will come heightens our addiction further. Similar to the jackpot in gambling, the constant uncertainty of when the next like, tag, or the next interesting post on the scroll drives us berserk. Rewards delivered unpredictably are far more enticing than rewards delivered with a known pattern. I've covered this in episode 83, Intermittent Positive Reinforcement. Social engineers leverage this evolved psychological response and they take advantage of it by delivering our mammalian brain with random intermittent rewards in the ratio that keeps us most engaged. They have hijacked our evolved conditioning to create profitable addictions. It's a fine balance. No reward and we would quickly bore. Too much of a reward and we would only use the application when we need the hit, but find the sweet spot and we go berserk in anticipation. Your addiction to social media is probably not as harmful as a drug addiction, and it won't cause the same physical withdrawals, but it still can harm you psychologically. The ease of access of social media means that a moderate addiction can hinder you just as much as an infrequent destructive addiction. Additionally, it's a complete waste of your time, especially if you're aiming to be the most productive version of yourself. Quit it now or be a slave to the big tech giants. The same is also true for television and the media. Essentially, the news does not convey an accurate representation of what is actually going on in the world anymore.
You are fake news.
Understand that the world is a great place to live. It's a much better place than it was even just 20 years ago. Despite better and more widely available news coverage, only a small percent of people really believe the world is trending in a positive direction. Take a look at these illustrations. In 2021, just over 9% of the world survived on $1.90 a day or less, compared to nearly 36% in 1990. This is despite a 7-fold increase in population in the last 200 years. In fact, over the last 100 years, Western capitalist practices have lifted more people out of poverty, both as a number and as a percentage of humanity, than ever before in all of documented human history. Literacy and numeracy has improved, with the world illiterate population percentage falling from just over 24% in 1990 to under 14% in 2016. Child mortality rate has improved. In 1990, 9% of children younger than 5 years of age died, whereas only 3% of children younger than 5 died in 2017. For more information on the world's ignorance, check out gapminder.org. Unfortunately, we don't hear these positive stories. The media is obsessed with reporting tragic events and is reluctant to report the slow positive developments that reshape our world. These slow improvements don't get reported because they are improved slowly, day by day, but disaster comes quickly and destructively. Disasters also keep the audience captivated more than good news. Understand that it's human nature to be more interested in bad news and drama than good news. It's interesting and dramatic when disaster happens. Humans are driven to ascertain threats that are likely to immediately harm us so we can protect ourselves. Additionally, when you gather information on the negative things happening around the world, it gives something negative for you to talk about with your friend. Talking about bad news allows two people to bond together. We share in the hard times. Oxytocin is released when we bond this way. This hormone will make you feel safe and okay, knowing that you are bonding socially with another, despite the supposed terrible state of the world. If the other person doesn't know of the latest news, then you also enjoy a hit of the hormone serotonin. You feel superior by knowing the latest news that someone else doesn't. Gossip works in the same way as well. Like every other business, the newsrooms need to be profitable. They retain viewers by manipulating these evolved psychological responses embedded in our biology. This is what's evil about the news. The news stations aren't realistic, they're capitalistic. Profits drive the news reports. This is why most people think the world is trending in a negative direction. With the world becoming a better place, the news has had to overemphasize or exaggerate the negative news to retain viewers. This leaves most people with an unrealistic impression of the world. If you consistently watch the news, it will heighten your anxiety. You'll be infected by its negativity, and you'll start to find negativity in everything, and all you'll ever talk about is bad news. I've emphasised why you should avoid negative people in episode 38. Think of the news as a negative person and avoid them like you would anyone else. This will be made easier when you see the news for what it really is, a sophisticated, socially acceptable form of gossip. I suggest drastically cutting down on media and social media. It's just another form of mental clutter and it won't contribute positively to you at all. Learn other ways to stimulate the release of dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin, like bonding with friends in real life or on good news stories. When you read 20th century history and then compare it to the world today, you would see just how bad things were in the past. Then you will have a better perspective of how good life is today. Thanks for watching today's episode. In episode 91, I'll be talking about minimalism. Subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified when it drops. Catch you then.